All right, welcome back, and this is Mark with Realize the Self. And in today's video, I wanted to go over something quite interesting as well. And this one is in regards to koans and how they can produce spontaneous awakening. And that's what they did back in China and Japan, where they were used and originally developed. So we're going to go over some of the history, how they work, and some of the popular koans. So what's a Zen koan? A koan is a short paradoxical statement or question used in Zen Buddhism. Like, for example, what is the sound of one hand clapping? It's not a riddle to be solved logically. It's designed to short circuit ordinary thinking and provoke a direct, non-conceptual insight. What Zen calls kenshō, or awakening. The history of koans, the origins are from China around the 8th to 10th century. Koans emerged in Chan Buddhism during the Tang dynasty. Early Zen masters recorded spontaneous encounters, sharp questions, gestures, shouts between teacher and student. These were later compiled into collections like the Blue Cliff Record from the 12th century, the Gateless Gate around the 13th century. Originally, koans weren't practice tools. They were case studies of awakened behavior. A systematization, that's a tough word, man. Systematization came from Japan from the 12th to 18th century. When Zen spread to Japan, especially in the Rinzai school, koans became a formal training method. Students worked koans under a teacher, presenting their understanding in face-to-face interviews. The Soto school de-emphasized koans, favoring just sitting, but still deeply respected them. Historically, in China, koans were more for records of awakening. Japan, koans were engines for awakening. The psychological mechanics behind koans. Cognitive overload and failure of discursive thought. Koans are carefully constructed to break analytic reasoning. From a cognitive science perspective, the brain tries pattern recognition. It fails repeatedly. This induces cognitive dissonance. Eventually, the mind exhausts its usual strategies. This is the key. Awakening doesn't come from solving the koan. It comes from giving up the attempt to solve. And then next, we have the disruption of the default mode network. Modern neuroscience points to the default mode network, or DMN, associated with self-referential thinking, narrative identity, such as me or my story, rumination, and then meditation and koan practice both reduce the DMN activity. They go together, they complement one another. They increase present moment sensory integration. Koans specifically attack the conceptual self. Who am I? What is mind? What was your face before your parents were born? And when we come back to this, who am I? This is self-inquiry, Atma Vichara. This is popularized by Ramana Maharshi. I talk about this in the book. It's so popular, and it's one of the key, it's the koan of all koans. If you do this enough, as time goes on, you will reach self-realization just with that alone, even though it may take some time. The book, we have other practices to facilitate a more rapid self-realization, but just with who am I, that is the main goal. Without any of the other practices, without this practice, the other practices wouldn't matter. So this needs to be done eventually, if not now. When the narrative of self collapses, even briefly, people report unity, timelessness, absence of subject and object division. That maps strikingly well onto Zen descriptions of awakening. Insight learning, the aha effect. Koan awakening resembles insight learning as studied in psychology. Problems unsolvable by step-by-step reasoning, sudden restructuring of perception, abrupt clarity. EEG studies of insight moments show a burst of gamma band activity, right hemisphere dominance, and reduced prefrontal control. And gamma is so prevalent in self-realization. It's linked to high levels of compassion with the studies on the monks in the early 2000s. I talk about this in the book. It's linked to laughter. It's linked to high focus and concentration, such as flow states. And you couple a gamma with a slower brainwave frequency, such as theta, and you have these transcendent enlightenment type of experiences where you go into the bright light and you feel this immense bliss and love. And so EEG studies show that high gamma band activity burst, reduced prefrontal control, right hemisphere dominant. Zen would say seeing into one's nature happens all at once. It's like the fruit ripens on the tree and all of a sudden it falls at once. And that's your aha moment, your sudden realization, your kenshō. Neuroscience says, yep, that's a phase transition in brain dynamics. Different language, same phenomenon. Emotional arousal plus attentional absorption. The koan practice isn't calm at first, it's intense. You'll feel frustrated, you'll get obsessed, existential pressure. You'll feel that emotional charge increases noradrenaline and dopamine, heightens learning and neuroplasticity, locks attention onto a single inquiry. And so that increased noradrenaline and dopamine is actually very similar to flow states as well. So that's a very interesting comparison, similarity. Teachers historically intentionally applied pressure, deadlines, rejection, sharp feedback, because awakening requires total engagement, not casual reflection. And with total engagement, we talk about walking with the cup, and so you're totally engaged, and it's almost like a similar type of purpose or feeling, that produces similar results in brainwave patterns. So why koans can trigger awakening and why sometimes they don't? I mean, I don't remember who it was, but I talked about it in the book that they can produce awakening in even as little as 6 months, is one guy that talks about this. So koans work when the practitioner is deeply concentrated, conceptual thinking is fully exhausted, the mind-body system is stable enough to tolerate ego disruption. They fail or can cause harm when used without proper guidance. Practiced by people prone to dissociation, treated as clever puzzles or philosophical games, Zen was never meant to be a do-it-yourself brain hacking. And we talk about, too, the dangers and the drawbacks of brain hacking, biohacking, especially when it comes to the brain. There's no exogenous substance. There's no brain technology that's going to produce this instant enlightenment. That is a fallacy. That is a huge, huge trap. And we'll go into that and more in videos in the future, and you could check out some of the videos. I already talked about that stuff, too. So what actually awakens, from a scientific lens, a reorganization of perceptual processing, reduced self-referential filtering, increased sensory immediacy and coherence. From a Zen lens, nothing new appears, delusion drops away. Mountains are mountains again. Different maps, the same territory. In the final paradox, science can explain how koans destabilize cognition. History can explain why Zen masters use them, but neither can explain what it's like when a koan breaks open. Zen would say, if I explain it, it is already false. And here's some very short koans for you if you're interested, and you could also look online there's tons of them. So the one we already talked about. What is the sound of one hand clapping? Nothing. There's no sound. Nothing. Does a dog have Buddha nature? What was your original face before your parents were born? If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him. Who is hearing this sound? And so there's longer dialogued koans. There's all sorts of different ones. They're short. They last because they're short and they leave no conceptual escape. They point directly to immediate experience. They collapse subject-object thinking, and that is self-realization. They will give you kenshō, a glimpse, if you keep at it enough. They can't be improved by explanation. Zen teachers say a good koan should feel like a mosquito biting an iron bowl. No place to land, no place to push. And with that, thanks for being here. We'll see you on the next one.